Hey folks, it's time for another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 58. Today I'm going to answer a video request I received from an anonymous Tumblr user, and this is what they wrote to me. Have you ever heard about asexuals not knowing the difference between wanting to actually date and the societal pressure to date? Maybe a video idea? I feel like it's led me to do things I wouldn't have done otherwise. And I always think back and struggle to understand if I was really interested in them to begin with. This is like an excellent question because it actually becomes pretty nuanced to tell the difference between what do I intrinsically want to do and what do the messages I'm receiving in society make me think I want to do. And sometimes those two things are not all that different, but when we get to a point where we know enough about something like being aromantic to be able to consider this is actually an option, then sometimes we can start to puzzle out what really comes from us and what we're being conditioned to believe. I'm going to tell you a story about when I was a little kid. So like a lot of y'all probably will recognize this phenomenon. When you're a weird kid, sometimes you don't make friends all that easily. In my case, it was probably mostly because I was a little bit shy and a little bit nerdy, and I preferred to talk to adults or much older kids, and the kids who were my own age, I had trouble relating to them, or they scared me, or they wanted to do things that I didn't like or didn't understand, but I couldn't express to them very well what I didn't like about it. So, I wasn't a popular kid, and I really didn't hit my stride with finding ways to connect with other people that liked what I liked and whose company I enjoyed until early high school, really. So I felt like because there were these pressures to make friends and don't be lonely, and this perception that if you don't have many friends then it must be that you're lonely, I thought, oh, well, I must be lonely. But it was really confusing as a kid because I don't really remember feeling lonely. I remember feeling like I must be a disappointment, I must be the laughing stock of the school, I must be like a person that everybody wants to mock or everybody thinks is a reject. And, that's a hurtful thing to internalize, but when it came down to it, I didn't really sit around wishing I had somebody to pay attention to. I wanted to be reading or doing something else fun, and those were not things that I chose to do because I was trying to drown out sorrows or trying to retreat from my problems. It's just I genuinely wanted to be doing those things, and being social was pretty exhausting, really. And when I got a little older, it wasn't because I wasn't good at it. I can connect with people pretty well these days, and that started when I began to understand how to connect with other people over what we had in common, and how to give and take. And when I was able to connect with other people and make friends and had opportunities to invite people over or be invited to things, I still found myself pretty exhausted by long periods of interaction, or if it was a lot of large groups, a lot of noise, a lot of effort put forth in keeping up social interaction. Turned out I was just an introvert. I preferred my solitude, and even though I like individual people and sometimes can feel really fulfilled by my relationships with other people. I just don't really crave company the way I think extroverts do. And in our society, if you live by yourself or you spend a lot of time alone, that's practically synonymous with being pathetic. Or it's synonymous with more outgoing people wanting to help you change that, as if it must be something you'd want to change if you could, and that the only people who claim that they don't want to change that are just liars who want to save face. And I feel like, going back into the subject that I was asked to talk about, relationships are a lot like that. We feel like if we are not in them, it's because we failed to be. And on top of the fact that that's not true in some of our cases, I don't understand what makes people want to mock people who want to be in relationships but can't be. I mean, that's not nice. Why do you want to make fun of somebody who is already being taught that they're a failure, or being taught that their life, their choices have led them to something really unenviable? What feels good about telling that person, you really suck at life? It's just, why would you want somebody to feel like that because of your words? I'm sure it's already hard enough if that actually is how they feel. But for me, I think because I went through that as a kid and went through everybody expecting me to wish I had more friends, and I really didn't. I had already realized by high school that, I liked my individual friends, but I didn't crave just random friendships. I didn't wish I was in more friendships and have more social interaction than I did. So I had been through that. I had already figured that out about myself. So when it came to the relationships question, I think it was an easy extension from that concept to say, this is not something I intrinsically want to do. And I think for that reason, I was luckier than most, in that most people absolutely grow up being fed this idea that everybody connects with other people in a romantic way, and everybody wants to be married, wants to form at least a relationship with another person, to have a household together, if not also have children, which is very common as well. This idea that you do that because you're going to be starting a family, and that's going to involve raising children together. And I mean, things are changing somewhat with the idea of what an acceptable family is, but there is still a pervasive belief in our society that being single is temporary if you can help it. And you don't even have to say anything between the word single and whatever you say next for somebody who's talking to you to feel like they should apologize. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Or they may immediately start giving you suggestions for where you can meet people, or asking you if you've tried this, that, or the other, and it doesn't even occur to them that maybe some of us are single because we want to be. And that's disappointing to have that conversation with someone, but even people who are a little nicer about it, I think that they still believe it's a ruse. I think a lot of them still think we're making it up because we don't want to admit that we wish we could find someone. And at least in my case, I've had so many situations where I had to be really mean to people to get them to understand that I really did not want to go there with them. And it wasn't out of fear, it wasn't because I didn't like the person in a non-romantic way, it was because I literally want to be single for my whole life. And that is not an answer you're allowed to fill in on the Scantron in your life as a person in this society. So I think that The only exception is people who are very dedicated to a craft or a career. And again, it's perceived as you're doing this instead. You're doing this because you've got to pour all of your attention into something that'll take your mind off how lonely you are. And I absolutely agree with this anonymous person who sent me this Tumblr message that I have tried things that I wouldn't have tried if messages from media and from people around me and from examples I see in society hadn't made me think this is something I need to try. And relationships are just like a default. People think, of course, you want to be in this specific kind of life arrangement. And it doesn't even seem to occur to a lot of folks that there are other options, not just being single, but being in relationships that are not romantic, or raising a family with people that you're not romantically involved with. There's a lot of alternate options, and I wish that we could hurry forward in the progression of society's perceptions of relationships so that we can get to this point where all kinds of different arrangements are seen as relatively equal, rather than, okay, these are these weird people's alternate version of the real thing, which is a cross-gender partnership in which you get married and have children. Let me look at this question again and see if I've covered, let's see, have I heard about asexuals not knowing the difference between wanting to actually date and the societal pressure to date? I guess I have a little more to say about that. Like I said in the beginning, it can be really nuanced to separate what do I feel from what has society told me I'm supposed to be feeling. Some of y'all who are asexual and or aromantic, tell me if you've experienced this. Like, you have a date with someone and you went on the date because they asked you out and it was their idea and you thought, why not? I have this opportunity to try this out. Let's see if I like this. Let's see if I like the person. Let's see what it's all about. And then you spend the experience wondering, is this that thing I heard about in the movies? Is this kissing supposed to feel good at this point? Is it supposed to be this boring, or is it supposed to be this gross? Why don't I hear music from heaven coming down? Why don't I feel tingly? Why don't I feel excited about this person? Why do I just kind of want it to be over? We're comparing our actual experience with what we've been told we're supposed to experience. And I think even if you're not asexual or aromantic or both, lots of people have that experience, like, oh wow, I've seen this in so many movies and now I'm doing it. But it's kind of like, for a lot of them, it's like a fulfillment of that dream. They're like, now it's finally my turn and it was great. Whereas for us, a lot of times it's confusing and it's disappointing. And we then have to wonder, well, did I do something wrong so that I don't like this? Because everybody makes it seem like this is great. So was I judgmental? Was I just scared? Was this the wrong person? Was this the wrong gender? Was I just not ready? Will I be ready in a couple of years? What should I do differently next time? Maybe I should be more assertive. Maybe I should be less assertive. We second guess ourselves a lot when it doesn't pan out how we're told it's supposed to pan out. And yeah, that can be, it can be really disorienting. And if I can get this across to some of the folks who watch my videos that are not asexual or aromantic themselves, how I think a lot of people underestimate the power of these societal messages when they do not fit you. How lost you can feel when your experience doesn't measure up. Um, there is so much power in expectation, and this goes all the way to permanent relationships where you marry the person, raise a family with them, like some aspects of that, but you're kind of trapped with other aspects of it that you never wanted, and you're forced to feel like, well, that's your problem. You just are wrong. You feel wrong, and you can't talk to anyone about it because those feelings are shamed and minimized. And if you feel romantically attracted to someone but not sexually attracted to them, you're not supposed to talk about that because that would be rude or that would be offensive to them. That would make them feel like they're not attractive. That would make them feel like they're bad at sex when it's not really about them. A lot of times it's about how your orientation works, but you're not allowed to say that because then your love for them, which you do feel, is called into question. For those of us who are aromantic, it's a little bit different because a lot of us avoid relationships. We don't let ourselves get into romantic relationships that last a long time because we feel wrong about it. But I mean, there are a lot of aromantic people who have ended up in relationships that they feel like they can't leave because those messages were very loud and they do care about the person. They just don't feel about them the way that society led them to believe they would if they had a relationship with them and if they had other positive feelings about them. So it's really hard to describe to people who never had a problem with these messages how pervasive and how powerful those messages are in making us change the way we live our lives. When you get those supposed tos and they don't fit you, there is this alienation that comes crashing down that it makes you feel like you can't talk to other people about it, and it makes you feel like there's just something fundamentally wrong with who you are. This is why we need language. This is why we need community. This is why we need to have these conversations, because without them, we are very alone in ways we don't want to be, even if we want to be alone, if that makes sense. So with that, I encourage you to talk more about nuanced feelings that you feel. Find out if other people are experiencing these things with regard to relationships or sexual orientation. Don't feel like this is something you can't share with someone, even if you feel like it's going to be an unpopular perspective, like folks who have wanted to talk about, yeah, maybe because I'm autistic and I'm asexual, then those two things, maybe they're more related than I thought they were. Or people who are transgender, I've heard some of them say, I don't like to talk about that I identified as asexual before my transition, and now that I've transitioned and I'm more comfortable with who I am, I'm realizing that I do feel those attractions, and I feel like I'm casting doubt on asexuality because it was a phase for me, and it was an element of not really knowing myself or not being able to live my truth. These kinds of perspectives, lots of people are feeling them, and if we don't talk about them, then we don't find out that lots of other people are going through that, and that it's totally a legitimate thing that you don't have to deal with by yourself, and you don't have to feel like it's wrong or that you need to seek counseling to get past it, because, if it's part of who you are, why do you need to get rid of it? So, as a person who wants to be single and has no romantic feelings toward other people and has no problem being alone, I wish I was alone more than I am. But like, as a person who is in that situation, I still sometimes feel pressure from outside, and I feel like people are still looking at me as if I failed to human properly, and it still is painful to be interpreted that way. And I'm glad that I have people to talk to about why it's completely fine to live the way that I do. I'm not gonna say like, oh, I crave validation for this, because that's not really what it is, but those messages are drilled into you pretty early and pretty often about what your life is supposed to look like. And those of us who question some of the more fundamental aspects of human life, we sometimes need help to be strong, because we certainly had a lot of help to be weak, to have our true feelings chipped away at and derided and questioned, so that only the strongest of us have felt like we're allowed to stand the way that we want to. And those who are not given access to community, access to language, access to support, a lot of them just end up getting swallowed up in situations that do not let them live their authentic lives, and we never hear about it because they don't feel free to speak. I'd like to see a lot less of that happening in the future. And it all starts with these conversations, so keep having them, guys. Alright, well, I've rambled long enough for this one. I think I'll just end here, and I'll see y'all next time, okay? Bye.